Thank you.
I just want to make sure it's not your face.
Am I good?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. Good to see everybody this morning. You know, this month we've been talking about, as Claire said, all is good in the neighborhood. And last week, Reverend Debbie talked about don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff, okay? And today we're talking about keep on keeping on, and that's what Jeff was reading about, the words from Maya Angelou. Just, you know, when we're down, still I rise. It's a story about this young woman, and she was having some challenges in her life. She really needed some support and some comfort. And so who did she go to? She went to her dad. She goes to her dad and she says, "Dad, I'm having these real challenges, and I would like you to help me with this." And it turns out her dad is a chef, and he doesn't say much, but he takes her into the kitchen with him. Doesn't say much, but he puts 3 pots of water on the burners. And if you've heard this one before, don't stop me. And in the first pot, he puts some carrots, some real strong, healthy-looking carrots. Drops them in the pot. Second pot, he puts eggs. And the third pot, he puts some coffee beans. He just lets them go for about 20 minutes. And she's like, "Oh boy, Dad, came to you for advice, and what do you do when you're cooking carrots? I don't know." So they let them cook for a while, and then after a while he turned the burners off, and he had some bowls, and he took those carrots out, and he took a ladle and put the carrots in a bowl. He took the eggs out, put those in a bowl, and then poured the coffee into a cup. And he said to her, "Well, what do you see?" She said, "Well, I see carrots and eggs and coffee." "Come on, Dad, I need a little support. Where's this support coming from?" And he said, "Well, go a little closer to those carrots and go ahead and take a bite of those carrots." So she goes over, takes a bite. Yeah, they're awful. They're inedible. They're mushy and yucky. And he said, same thing with the eggs. Go see how those eggs are. Well, she unpeeled that egg, and it's harder than a rock, just inedible. And she goes over to the cup of coffee, takes a sip, and she says, "That's great. It's a nice, rich coffee." And she's still like, but Dad, where am I getting this support and guidance from you that I came for? She's getting a little annoyed. She says, "It's a very interesting experiment, but let's get to the good stuff here." And he explained to her that all these things, the carrots and the eggs and the coffee, they face the same severe adversity, this boiling water underneath them. And yet each one reacted differently. Of course, the carrots that were strong and, very healthy looking, they come out all mush. And the eggs, which were soft, of course, inside, turned out harder than a rock. And yet the coffee turned out very good. And he said that when adversity knocks at your door, how do you respond? Do you turn to mush? Does all your strength just go away, and do you turn to mush? Or do you get tough? Do you get harder than a rock? Or do you do like the coffee did? And that was, the coffee kept its own stuff. The coffee changed the water. And this was his advice to her, that when adversity comes, be true to yourself. Know that power within you is always there for you. You don't have to become mushy, or you don't have to become tough. You can be richer. You can change the environment around you by going through this change in your life. So that was his advice to her. So today we're going to be talking about trying to be more like that coffee bean, where rather than becoming mushy or becoming too tough, we change the world around us by the richness. And I think that poem was really exemplified when we get knocked down, still I rise. And our spiritual growth, it doesn't happen overnight. That's kind of the key to this. We know we take it step by step. It's gradual. It builds over time. And sometimes this growth involves challenges, it involves problems, and sometimes it involves pain. And sometimes the thing we react most to is the pain. You know, I've had a little talk with God from time to time about this, saying, you know, I'm willing now to learn a little bit with just a nudge. You don't have to hit me with the 2x4 anymore, I promise. I'm going to really pay attention. But pain, you know, sometimes that pain is what it takes in our life for us to pay attention and make some changes. So this morning I'm going to share 3 ideas around this idea of our spiritual growth and how it grows gradually over a period of time. The first is that wherever we stop is where we end up. Yeah, if you just give up, that's the end of the game. That's it, over. But really successful people, that's not what they do. They may run up into a barrier, but they don't stop. They keep on going. And we certainly know this from our visits to our prison circles. We listen to these guys in these prison circles, and so often they say, I thought being arrested and being in prison was the worst thing in my life. And I found out it's the best thing in my life. It's what I needed. I'm making some changes in my life. If I didn't come here, I'd probably be dead by now, or certainly just going on to a life that is not an enviable one. It's a very poor life. So we know this to be true, that people who get an opportunity, and that's the second thing that we're going to talk about here today. Every thing that happens, every experience we have in our life is an opportunity. And then the third thing we're going to talk about is just the importance to know that our good is at hand. The importance to remember that power within. The importance to remember we're not alone. So the first one we're going to talk about is this idea of not giving up. And that word give up is not in the vocabulary of successful people. And it's kind of fun to reiterate some of these people that we all know who ran into some big obstacles on their way. Take Woody Allen, you know, big producer. He's just a great director. Lots of wonderful, whether you like the movies or not. My late husband used to like the Woody Allen movies. He says, I like that Jewish angst. And he could do it better than anybody. But he flunked his motion picture production class at New York University. But you know, did he say, well, obviously that's not what I'm good at, I better go do something else? No, he didn't. This is what I want to do, and I'm going to continue to work at it, and obviously he did. Lucille Ball, when she was studying to be an actress, she was told by the head instructor of her drama school, try another profession, any profession. He saw no possibilities in her whatsoever. You know, and can you imagine if she would have walked out and thought, well, you know, here's a professional. You know, he's seen a lot of people. He knows what's good. I'm not good. I'm going to go home and whatever. Let Desi beat up on me. I don't know. But she didn't. You know, she tried. She rised again. Then there's a story about this Universal Pictures. There was an executive who dismissed both Clint Eastwood and Burt Reynolds on the same day. He told Burt Reynolds, you know, you got no talent. Out of here. He told Clint Eastwood, yeah, you might be a good-looking guy with a little talent, but with that Adam's apple, you're never going to make it in the movies. And so the two of them are outside in the parking lot, and Burt Reynolds says to Clint Eastwood, you know, he says, I can't act. Well, I can take acting lessons, but what are you going to do about that Adam's apple? And then there's Malcolm Forbes, who, of course, was the the editor of Forbes magazine, and he failed to make the staff of the school newspaper when he was an undergraduate. Not your bag. That's not what you're good at. No, a lot of people, when we're in our younger days, we're kind of suspect. We're like, well, we don't have a lot of confidence, and somebody tells us you're no good at something, and we get these rejections. We believe it. We react to it. But in these situations, these people didn't buy into it, and they went on and they tried again. It was and the Beatles too. They went to this recording company early on in their as they started this little group, and they were told by we don't like that sound, and we think that guitar groups are really on their way out. Now, wouldn't you think these young boys, they'd say, oh yeah, let's try something else for a while. This ain't gonna work. No, they just thought they don't necessarily, they're not the end all with us. We're going to keep trying. And then there was a woman named Wilma Rudolph. She was the 20th of 22 children. When she was born, they didn't know if she was going to make it. She really struggled. And when she was 4 years old, she got double pneumonia and she got scarlet fever. And as a result of that, she got paralyzed in her left leg, and she had to walk with a brace. That's the only way she could walk. When she was 9 years old, she took that brace off. And when she was 13, she said, I think I'm gonna be a racer. I think I'm gonna run some races. So she enters into a race and, of course, comes in dead last. She enters into another race, dead last, dead last. And people are saying, Wilma, this isn't your bag. This is not what you're supposed to be doing. Find something else. But no, she kept trying. Finally, she actually won a race. She kept racing. She won another race, And at the end, this little girl who was told she was never really going to walk, she won 3 Olympic medals. How easy it would have been to give up, not rise again. And Thomas Edison, we all know the story. 2,000 times he tried to make this light bulb, get this light bulb going. Didn't work. And people asked him about this failure. How did you feel about how many times you failed? He said, I didn't fail. I invented the light bulb. It took 2,000 steps. Some people are tenacious, and we all can have that tenacity. We can all say to ourselves, I'm not doing this alone. I got a power within, and we can use that. An affirmation has to do with persistence and determination. It says, I'm not discouraged, I'm persistent. I move forward into my highest good. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence and determination. With God's help, I move into my highest good. So that's the first key, this idea that we never quit, that we keep on keeping on. And the second one, of course, is this idea about every opportunity is a wake-up call for us. I mentioned about the prisoners, how some of them really recognize this is a wake-up call for me. It can change my life. It can be a good thing for me. Now, I had a wake-up call this week, again. My wake-up calls tend to happen around technology. I wanted to watch Presumed Innocent. The book, then there was a movie, then there's another movie, and it's on Apple Plus. I get Apple Plus. I pay $9.99 a month for it. So I watched the first segment, and I noticed it said on there, the first one is free. I'm thinking, well, they should all be free. I pay $9.99 for this thing. And I hesitate to dial these numbers for these people because I get angry. And so finally I thought, well, if I want to watch this thing, which I did, I better pick up the phone and say, why do I have to pay for this, or am I reading this wrong, or what's going on? Well, who are you going to talk to? Nobody. You talk to these, it's a chat. You can chat. and you're chatting with a robot who has these 2 hours, I'm on the phone, chatting. And I finally kind of figure out that they're telling me I have an old email. It's garybwald@comcast.net. Well, Gary's been dead 5 years, and a few years after he died, somebody called me and say, it's illegal for you to have that with his name on it, so that's closing down. Who did this? I don't know. But, I'd forget about it, but it's on some of this stuff. And so now all of a sudden, second series of presumed innocent, all of a sudden, that's not a good email for me. So, and then these robots are telling me, okay, now I'm going to give you these 6 steps, you do this, you do this, you do this. And I'm trying to do it. But then they say, well, use your Gmail email. And I'm thinking, I thought I did have a where is it? I don't know. I don't know how to find it. And finally I told the little robot, I said, I got to see you in the morning. I can't do this anymore tonight. But when I went to bed that night, and this is very frustrating, and I'm not saying I don't slam a few things and say a few bad words. And I remember who I am. I'm not going to go down that slippery slope and let it ruin any more of my life than that 2 hours where I was. So I go to bed, and I actually do this. I don't know who did. Oh, this is the other thing. This is the big thing. While I'm on the phone with this robot, there's this other thing that pops up and says, well, you're going to have to pay $1 for something or other. I'm thinking, well, it's part of the process. It's a part of the process of them stealing my cash card. So before I went to bed that night, I got a note from Wells Fargo. Well, not a note, but we actually talked on the phone. And they said, somebody has stolen your cash card, and now we're going to close that cash card. So now I've got all this money coming out of my checking account to pay for this, that reoccurring stuff you get. And so they sent me a list of people that are on that. Well, I've tried calling a few of those people. Same thing, you can't talk to them. I have no idea, so I'm just going to wait till they come and arrest me and just say, here's my new number. I don't know what else to do. So, and I feel like I have handled it in a little bit different way than I have in the past. I didn't lose any sleep over it. Yes. That was a good thing. No sleep. Didn't lose any sleep over it. And I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to rectify this thing, but I'm not fretting over it. I know everything will turn out as it's supposed to be. But I think we all get these lessons, and until we get over these, till we go through them, till we face them, they keep landing. Do you ever do that? There's a certain personality. You get over one, you move away, you move across the country, and there's a guy sitting across the desk from you again. Same personality, same problems. So until we learn to deal with these things, they will give us opportunities. So we can learn and we can grow. And as we practice this idea of learning, we will learn how to produce harmony versus conflict. And every experience that we run into, we'll recognize as a way to move up, a wake-up call for us. So, number 1, we don't stop, we don't give up. Number 2, let's use these experiences as wake-up calls. And number 3 is just to remember there is good at hand. Good is there for us. The universe is for us. And this is to remember. And remember, we're not alone. That essence that created everything there is the essence within us. We're not alone. Our good is at hand. There's a guy that writes an article in our Science of Mind magazine, Jesse Jennings. He writes this Q&A, question and answer. Do you know him? Yeah, it's an interesting article, and he says this. He says that even when the outcome isn't quite there yet, we can know it's forming. Doesn't that remind you of my favorite quote? Despite appearances, there's something moving in the unseen for my greater good, even when we don't see it. The same is true of, like trees. The trees look like they're dead in the winter. There's stuff going on underneath. They're growing. That's when they do their growth. And it can be said the same thing of us in winter. When we have the winters that we aren't out doing so many activities, but we're inside. We're maybe doing some introspection work. We're maybe doing some meditation and practicing silence. Something is happening within us. We're growing and we're getting better and better. If you plant a bamboo seed, you don't see anything, nothing, for 5 years. Think about that, 5 years. I don't think I'd think it was dead. But then after 5 years, the thing comes up, and within 6 weeks, it grows 90 feet. That's how the message is that when we plant our seed, when we set our intention, not to expect something right now, just know there's something moving in the unseen for our greater good. And we can know that that growth is happening for us. It's happening gradually, step by step. And when we remember that that power is within us, nothing can steal our joy. We can lean on that. We can know it even before we start seeing the manifestations of our prayers. Ernest Holmes tells us in Science of Mind textbook, he says, when we separate ourselves from the divine fire, we become an isolated spark. We are strong only when united with life. As soon as our consciousness is detached from spiritual wholeness, we can no longer draw from that inexhaustible reservoir of eternal existence. So we become exhausted. When we're trying to do it by ourselves, we become exhausted. There's nothing to fall back upon. Life is one perfect wholeness. The universe is one unit. God is one. It is impossible for us to feel separated from spirit without feeling want and lost. That subtle something which runs through all things, that life without which nothing can live, that power without which nothing can move, that spirit without nothing can be, is God. It is only as we live in conscious union with spirit and consciously let it work through us that we really live. So that's Holmes' idea about this. So the idea is just to keep on keeping on, never give up, wake up to that greater awareness when we have an experience. Let's use it as an opportunity to grow. And let's always remember, God, our good is at hand because God is within. All things are possible. So I would like to invite you to get comfortable where you are, and I'd like to close with a spiritual mind treatment around these words that I've just shared with you. I know there is but one power in the universe, and that power is the power that has the perfect solution to any perceived dilemma in life. It is peace and love and joy, balance, order. It's all good. And it's that same power that created everything and everyone that experiences life through its creation, through me, through each person, through all creation. And even though there are times when I meet adversity and I'm like that carrot, I get all soggy and mushy when there's a problem, or else I become like that egg and I got to get tough, hard. Even though there are times like that, I set an intention now to be more like the coffee, to be true to myself, not change me, but change the world around me. And I remember that my spiritual growth is gradual. It doesn't happen in one fell swoop. It's gradual. It unfolds over time. I'm encouraged by those words of Maya Angelou, "Still I rise." And I don't stop, just like Wilma Rudolph or Edison. I remember every experience is a wake-up call that I can use to grow in my spirituality, even when these problems include technology. However frustrating things seem. And I remember that even when I don't see anything happening, that my good is at hand. I trust that unseen is working for me. My good is at hand. And I'm grateful for the law, grateful that this is the way the universe is set up to work. We plant these seeds and it is done unto us as we believe. I set this intention, my good is at hand. So I release these words now to that beneficent conspiracy for perfect manifestation, and so it is.